Welcome to a brand new episode of IDTALK4EDLIVE, Live, the show for the unsung heroes of education. I'm your host, Sarfo-Mensah, and if this is your first time tuning in to this podcast, I welcome you and I hope that you will return for future episodes after this one. And if you are a returning listener or viewer of the podcast, as always, I thank you for coming back. And I hope that today's episode will once again meet or exceed your personal expectations. So, before we get into the conversation, just a reminder for folks to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's going to be under my name, Sarfo-Mensah. So if you're watching it, you can see the name spelled out here, KWAMESARFO-MENSAH. Make sure y'all subscribe there on YouTube. Also, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other streaming platforms. And if you are someone who wants to donate to this platform so that we can continue to bring you all the best educators out there who are doing the work and making a difference in their communities, you can send your donations to either Cash App at my handle, money sign, IDTALK4ED, or Venmo with the handle at KwameSM. All donations are welcome, and I thank you kindly for your contributions. All right, y'all. So we are 2 episodes into the new season. We got the third one happening tonight, and this is one where we're approaching foreign territory here because I don't think there's been an episode of the podcast where we've talked about writing explicitly, writing instruction. So this is a topic that I've been meaning to dive into, especially considering the fact that I'm in the process of writing my book and I'm going through the process as we speak, which is a daunting one. So there's so much that I want to share about this, but I figured it'll be even better to bring on somebody who does this for a living, who eats, sleeps, and drinks this craft, knows the ins and outs about the craft. So we have this sister coming straight out of New Orleans, and she's had an incredible journey that has gotten her into the education profession. So we'll talk about the twists and turns and how she got to where she is. So before I start rambling and babbling and doing what I'm doing right now, I want to just go ahead and get this conversation started because there's so much we need to cover. And always, there's never enough time to delve into these topics of importance. So without further ado, I want to bring on Kyley Pulphus to the podcast to talk with us about her company, We Scribbin, and it's pretty self-explanatory what that's about, and just her overall journey as an educator. So let's get Kyley on. What's good?
Hey, Kwame. Look, I'm listening. You say she eats, drinks, sleeps, writing instruction. That is probably the best and most accurate introduction of me I've ever had because I cannot get off my soapbox enough about how important writing is and why we really need to be emphasizing writing instruction for our babies.
Wow, and I appreciate you for even coming on because there's so much that we need to cover with regard to writing.
Yeah.
And as somebody who discovered writing later in life and has grown to appreciate the craft of writing,
Yeah.
I'm especially excited to talk about this topic. So welcome again.
Thank you.
And how you feeling?
I feel excited. I've been following you for a while, Kwame. So when you were like, you want to come on the podcast? I was like, do I? Of course I do. So I'm really just humbled and excited to be here and really excited to talk about writing instruction. I'm not surprised you have not had an episode about writing instruction because the priority is usually always reading, right? That's what we talk about
Mm.
all the time. And so that's where everybody's looking, but writing is an integral part of literacy instruction. So I'm glad that you are making space for this today.
And I think it's interesting that you mentioned that because when we think about literacy, we automatically think, okay, if you're a strong reader, if you have the ability to decode words
Mhm.
and comprehend text and content, you're literate. But we never talk about writing, right?
Right.
And I believe in recent years, particularly when you look at standardized tests and other formative assessments, r- writing itself, when whether we're talking writing open-ended responses, constructive responses for different topics, because we know it's all cross-curricular, right?
Of course.
There's not as much weight held up for writing as there is
Reading.
for reading, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
At least that's been my observation, just as someone who's had to teach math and writing in math.
Right. Writing across the curriculum. No, what you're saying is absolutely true. Writing has been called the neglected R. You know, they
Mm.
say they got the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic. Well, we are focusing, and only one of those really start with an R anyway. So we do the reading in the arithmetic, but we're not doing the writing. And that is the part where I'm like, y'all, do you understand how necessary writing is? Like
Yes.
reading and writing are, of course, related processes. And you cannot teach reading without teaching writing, and you cannot teach writing without teaching reading. But what I tried to, I was interviewed, and I said this in the interview, and have been quoted since. But I said, reading gives you access, but writing gives you power. And
Mm.
we need to understand that. And what I mean by that is, so I use Sarah Broom as an example, right? I love Sarah Broom. She wrote the beautiful memoir, The Yellow House,
Okay.
about growing up in a house in the lower ninth ward. Millions of people read The Yellow House, right? Thus had access to it. Only Sarah Broom won the National Book Award for it. Now, who in that situation has the power? Do you understand
Mm.
what I'm saying? Words change the world. Who has not read a book, watched a movie, heard a song, listened to a speech, watched a commercial? All these things that after that, they were moved to action. The
Mhm.
people putting those words out there are the powerful people.
That's true.
We do not get awards for reading, we get
Nah, we don't.
awards for writing. So
Mm.
why are we playing around and not giving our babies the tools they need to be the creators, which writers are? Writers are creators, readers are consumers. So why are we not giving our babies the tools they need to be the creators? And that's my whole thing. It's like
Mm.
y'all playing around with this. Our babies are powerful and they need to be able to get out here and shake some stuff up, right? And we need to be giving them the tools to do that.
And then I also want to add this. So often we talk about controlling the narrative, changing the narrative, but now I'm wondering, how can we really do those things if we're not able to write it?
Exactly, right? Do
Think
you
about
think
that.
do you think it's intentional, Kwame? Do you think there's a reason why we don't want certain people being able to go out there and shake stuff up?
And let's take it even a step further. Let's go back
Yeah,
to Jim Crow legislation, right?
yeah, let's do that.
Let's go back to when black folks were shut out of access to read or write. There's a reason for that, because it will be harder for us to control the narrative if we had those abilities.
Look at that, right? Absolutely. And also, if you do not have the privilege, the access, the resources to do that, and there's one dominant narrative, we could pretend like nothing wrong, right? Because we
Sure.
don't have a counter narrative to say it, that it's not okay, right? There's just one story out there. It can't be bad because we don't have anything saying that it's not.
Mm.
Absolutely, it is intentional. It is absolutely intentional, and I'm like, I'm not with it. Right? Our babies have really powerful, interesting things to say. Right now at
Yes.
6, 7, 8, 13,
Mm,
15, 18, right? You don't all of a sudden become an adult and have, really interesting things to say. We have it right now. So if you are telling a child when they are 3, 4, 5, you are a writer, what do you think that baby is going to be like when they are 18? They're going to be unstoppable.
of course.
They're going to be unstoppable. So that's my whole thing. I'm like, can we prepare our babies, prepare these young people to have the skills they need to get out here and disrupt the
That's
hot
right.
mess that this world has become? Like,
That's an
let's do it.
understatement. But go
Right.
ahead.
Oh my goodness. Like the adults have really messed this up.
Oh,
We have done some terrible things out here, but these young
yeah.
people coming up behind us, like I always feel so hopeful. And I find that the people who are the most hopeful in the world to me are the people who work with young people, right? Because they're
Mm,
like, oh right, I remember what's coming up behind me, right? Let me work on them. Maybe the ones in front, maybe it's too late for them, but the ones behind us, man, they are something special. And we can give them what they need to fix this big mess that we've done.
mm.
Um, so that's my deal, right? Let's have them right.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, we can talk about writing all day,
We could.
and we're gonna get deeper into this. But I want to rewind and get back to the beginning. Let's start from the beginning, right?
Okay,
Because you are here,
I am
all
here.
right.
I got here.
Repping the is it 504, right? 504.
504 New
There we go.
Orleans. Lower nine is what they. I'm from the lower nine. If y'all are not familiar with geography of New Orleans, the lower nine is one of the rougher parts of the city. The
Mm,
saying is lower nine, don't mind dying. I do mind dying. I want y'all to know, but that's my neighborhood, and that's where I grew up.
all
But
right.
also, I want there is a narrative out there about what poor black girls from the lower nine look like, and what poor black girls
Mm,
from the lower nine are able to do.
okay.
And so it is really lovely to show that doesn't just look one way.
There you
Okay.
go.
Yes, because I look one way in the lower nine, and my friend down the street, she look a whole other way. And guess what? Both ways are great. Okay, they all great. I love all black. I love and respect all kinds of black, but there is more than one way that we look in our
Yes, of
neighborhood.
course. There's
Yeah.
nothing monolithic about the different
Any.
representations, right? Of NOLA, right? And
Right.
I've been to NOLA. I love NOLA. I got to get back there. I got to
You
get back
do.
there. Yeah,
Wait till it's not as hot. It's very hot right
yeah.
now. Yeah.
You know, and I'm not even talking like I haven't been there during like Essence Music
Oh,
Festival and all that because that's always crazy.
yes.
Um, but I would like to go there just to see kind of like outside of the touristy parts, like the Bourbon streets of the world and all that. Like,
Yeah.
let me see, let me see the countryside. Let me see like,
Yeah. You want to be in the Treme, the historically
yeah,
black
the
neighborhoods,
Treme, right?
all of those beautiful things. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, cause like I remember when the show came out,
Hmm.
Treme, I think Wendell Pierce was
Yep.
on the show,
He
and
was in it,
yep,
and he's from New Orleans.
yeah, see,
Wendell is from New Orleans. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, awesome actor, Wendell Pierce. Shout out to him. But yeah, so growing up in New Orleans, and at some point you discovered the art of writing. So
Hmm.
let's start there, right?
Yeah.
When did you start to fall in love with this craft called writing?
So I've written my whole life, right? You know, when I
Hmm.
talk about like you tell a 3-year-old that they're a writer, I have written my whole life. My mom has said that I have never been a day's trouble in my whole. I was a very good girl, but there was one thing that I always used to do was write on the wall. When I was
Ooh.
3, 4, I used to write on the wall because I've been a writer my whole life, and the earliest memory I have of a teacher telling me that I was, or an adult telling me is that I was a good writer, I was in third grade and I wrote a story. And she was like,
Wow.
"You are a really good writer." And I was like, "Thank you." So I always felt very affirmed in it. Now, when I was in eighth grade, I remember my teacher had us read an excerpt from Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings.
Mm,
And as we read that excerpt, she said, "Find the best sentence in this excerpt." And I read that. I mean, I devoured that excerpt, and I'm like, man, find the best sentence. How you find the best sentence in a Maya Angelou work? That is like trying to find a needle in a needle stack, right? Like
right,
every
right.
sentence is fantastic. Like you can't, but I did find one, and I can't quote it perfectly, but if the excerpt was when Maya is meeting with her mentor, Mrs. Flowers, and she was describing her, and it was something like she had a rich, deep black skin that would
Mm.
snag like a plum if pricked, but no one would ever get close enough to Mrs. Flowers to ruffle her dress, let alone snag her skin. It was something like that. I mean, just a brilliant, beautiful, beautiful sentence. And after I read that excerpt, I was like, I'm gonna write. And it was in eighth grade where I was like, I'm gonna write when I grow up. That's what I want to do. Um, and if you read my writing now, I write sentences like that long. I read that sentence and my teacher said, "Was that just one sentence?" I said,
Shit,
"Yes," and
run
it has
on.
with buku commas. So if you are reading my writing, it's oh my goodness, like 86 words long with like 12 commas in it, right? But I was so drawn to that structure and thought that that was really beautiful. So that moment, that afternoon, I said, "This, writing is going to be a big part of my life, and I am going to do it as a grown up."
Mm.
That time.
All right. So you just touched on, that long behind run-on sentence that you used to write as a kid,
Yes.
which brings me to an interesting point because when we think about writing, we think about just the conventions of writing.
Usually.
Um, usually, like
Usually. That's why people don't
usually,
like writing. Right.
exactly, right? But then I think about how important voice is in writing. And this is something that I've discovered as I've gone through my own process of writing my books and everything else, even my blogs. The voice is so important to maintain because that's your identity that has to shine through those words.
It is
When
the
people
most
read
important.
it, they need to know that, oh, this is Kwame's voice. Oh, this is Kylie's voice, right? So I want to talk to you about colloquial writing, if you will.
Okay. All right.
Be- you know, because yeah, we talk about AAVE, for
Right.
us, right? And
Right.
how, we like to cut our words and do
Right.
different things, but
Yes.
that's just how we talk,
Omit the copula, as we say, taking that
you
verb out.
know,
She's so tall, now she is
like,
so tall. Yes.
finna and all that.
Hab-
Like,
Habitual be. I be at the playground. I be here. I be there. Yeah, all of those are the different aspects of our AVAA, the African American Vernacular English. Yes.
exactly. So I'm wondering now, I'm talking about voice,
Right.
but I know there are other skills that as writers, we got to embody.
Right.
Our students need to embody these skills. So
Right.
let's talk about that because this is writing instruction that we're touching on.
Right.
And I'm interested in knowing what skills do you believe children should embody in order to become strong writers? Let's start there and then I'll throw the second part.
So I'm with you, Kwame. Actually, to me, the most important aspect of writing is your voice.
Oh, dope.
Like that to me, that's what I stress is the voice
Mm-hmm.
because that's the reason why we have favorite authors,
Uh-huh.
right? Like this is why I love Maya Angelou because Maya Angelou sounds like Maya Angelou. She's a fantastic author. Guess what? Toni Morrison is a fantastic author too, but
Yes, she
Toni
is.
Morrison don't sound like Maya Angelou. Jason Reynolds is a fantastic author too, but Jason Reynolds don't sound like Toni Morrison, don't sound like Maya Angelou. And so
Mm.
to me, it is the most important that your writing sounds like you. And I tell children that explicitly. I say, I don't want it to sound like Shakespeare. I want it to sound like you. I don't want it to sound like Jason Reynolds. I want it to sound like you. I don't want it to sound like Maya Angelou. I want it to sound like you. And what I do is I bring in diverse books, authors, and show the babies, you see, this book is great because the author sounds like this author. Look, this person did it different and it sounds like them, but it's still good, right? And this person, they did it this way, but it's still great. So it is possible for you to write something beautiful and strong. And what makes it even better is that it's yours and it doesn't sound like everybody else's. And that's a lot of the issues that I'm having with the formulaic writing instruction that's happening. And not just me, plenty of people, right? Plenty of people have issues with the formulaic writing instruction that's happening in schools because you getting back 20 essays and you can't tell whose is whose if you cover up
Right,
the
right.
name. That's a problem. That's a problem, right? Like we want people to have really strong voices because that's what makes us like them. And so voice is the skill that I stress the most. And I think because voice is the skill that I stress the most, that is made the environment a lot more accessible because they're like, "Oh, Miss Kylie, you really mean that this can sound like me?" And I'm like,
Sure.
"Yes, I really do mean that." Now I understand, you at the beginning of the question, we're talking about we stress conventions and whatnot, and I don't want people to think that I um, are saying we should throw conventions out the
Like
window,
overlook it or anything. No.
overlook it.
No.
No, not at all, not at all,
Mm-mm.
because that is doing a disservice to our babies, right? In the book Other People's Children, Lisa Delpit refers to them as those codes of power. And the
Right.
codes of power are your presentations of self. That's the way you talk, the way you dress, the way you act, the way you move within spaces of opportunity that are respected and accepted by the dominant culture, right? So for me to pretend like codes of power don't exist, that would be actually irresponsible of me. Like I'm just sending my babies out into the world unprepared. That's not what I am talking about. But something else Lisa Delpit says is so you have to prepare your young people for them to understand these codes of power. So I'm like, I need y'all to understand that this is what people are saying you need to be successful. And I'm going to make sure you understand that. But I am also going to show you ways that other people are acting counter to that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm going to give you examples of like, yeah, when we say we have to speak, we have to have this like grammatically correct and blah blah blah, and you can't break these rules. Okay, you know the rule. Now I'm gonna show you all these other people that actually broke the rule because you can do that too. So the problem is that in our spaces, people are stressing the codes of power, but are not also showing babies that you can move counter to that. And they really need both of those things. And then also, Lisa Delpit in her book says, we as educators, not only is it our responsibility to make sure that our babies understand and are prepared for those codes of power, but then we do whatever we can within our own spheres of influence to change that.
Mm.
So we can make it, so I can set up my classroom for it to be a space for you to understand out there, that's what they're looking for. But in here, I'm going to let you be yourself,
There you
right?
go.
So we are also doing that, and that is not happening. And so, of course, if I am walking into a classroom and you are telling me that I have to write and speak a certain way that does not feel natural to me, and you are communicating with your words and the curriculum and everything that actually the way that I've entered this space is deficient, of course I'm not going to like
Mm.
writing.
You're hitting something here. And now I'm wondering this. Do you believe that disrupting the literary canon is a prerequisite for allowing for more flexible forms of writing in the literacy classroom?
100%. Throw it out. Like, like throw it out. Who was it who just did? Was it Edweek? Was it Edutopia? I don't know. But in 2016, they
Mm-hmm.
asked, they did a survey of teachers and said, what are the top, 10 books or whatever that you that we should be reading, right? High school students should be reading, and
Sure.
they contributed the list, and of course, it was filled with nothing but white men or majority white men. And
Sure.
then last year, they changed it slightly, the question slightly, and they said that was released in the last 10 years. And they
Mm.
didn't talk about authors or the race or whatever, but the list that they got back was so diverse. I mean, like women and race and LGBTQ and all of these things that was important. And so, yeah, and they were like, oh, okay, yeah, these reads are essential, right? Maybe I don't need to read Tom Sawyer. It's not super relevant to me right now. And there are so
Right.
many other new books that feel like when I read them, I feel seen, that it relates to me. I understand it. It affirms my identity. We 100% have to have diverse books and literature in our classrooms for everybody, right? Like even if you are at a school and you have 99% white babies in your classroom, they need to be reading black authors. There is a
Mhm.
I wish I knew the site. Look, I have all this mumbo jumbo in my head, but they have a t-shirt and a book that says you are not well read if all you do is read white authors.
There you go.
So so
Yeah.
you are not helping your babies if you are not putting diverse texts in front of them. Absolutely, we need to shake that cannon up. Get rid of it. Throw it out.
So this season, Identity Talk for Educators Live will be including ad spots for businesses, products, and events that are adding significant value to their communities. And here's the catch: you don't have to be an educator or an education based business to be a part of this. We're looking for people who are just doing great work in the community, and we want to use our platform as a way to amplify their work. So if you are an entrepreneur or you know of an entrepreneur who is doing just that, bring them in our direction. Have them reach out to us. If they want to learn more about their ad spots and how they can get themselves promoted on this platform, they can contact myself, Kwame at identitytalkforeducators.com. I'll say it one more time. It is Kwame at identitytalkforeducators.com. Hope to hear from you, and let's keep on amplifying our work and building each other up. All right.
Something
I
new.
knew that was going to be an answer, but I want the audience to hear it as well. So we learning. We educated right
Throw
now.
it out.
We
Go.
educated right now. But now let's talk about you, right?
Okay. Talk about me.
We'll get back to the writing, but we
Okay.
do want
I
to talk
know. I
about you.
told you.
It's
I eat
identity
sleep.
talk. I know it's your
I eat
jam. You
sleep
you
read.
gotta you gotta talk about the writing. I know,
I do.
but let's make sure we talk a little bit about you
Okay.
before we lose time, right?
Yeah.
So, what inspired you to become an educator?
This is this is a really interesting. I realized I have never been asked this question before.
Oh,
I have
really?
been never. I've been asked about my journey, like what brought me here, how did I get to this place, but never like, hey, at what point did you know? Like I had an answer for when I wanted to become a writer, but I have never been like, hey, Kylie, at what point were you like, yeah, teaching is your thing? I honestly think that some people are called to education and it's just in
Hmm.
them. I think that you are a natural teacher. I am a big sister. And when I tell you I'm a big sister, I'm a big, big sister. I have two younger siblings. My middle sister is 5 years younger than I am. My youngest sibling is 12 years younger than I am. So, when I'm 10 and my middle sister's 5, or I'm 15 and my youngest sibling is 3, I
Hmm.
got some years on them. And so I really was responsible for them in some very significant ways. So I think that big sister in me is definitely an identity that has contributed to me being like, I want to be an educator.
Right.
Now, I wanted to be a writer. I said when I was you know, when I was 13, I said I wanted to be a writer. And then in high school, took a television class, and I was like, oh, actually, I want to write TV. That's what I want to do. But then something in me in college, and I don't even know why, but in college I was like, or do you want to teach?
Mm.
Right? And so my major was communications with a film concentration. But I was considering a minor in education. So if you look at my transcripts, you're going to see, TV production and film theory, but you're also going to see child psychology. You're also
Right.
going to see linguistics. You're also going to see educational psychology because I was
Yeah.
really interested in those things. And then also the jobs that I had in undergrad. I worked at the on-site daycare and I worked as a tutor with the Upper Bound program. So I was working with young people and I was really interested in that. And then decided, I was like, maybe a good combination of those two things. You love young people and you love writing TV stuff. Maybe you should make content for young people. And so I went to graduate school at Florida State, the Graduate School Conservatory. It was a fantastic film school. Um, I mean, of course, it has some issues because which MFA program, when you're a BIPOC person, don't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Exactly.
definitely learned a lot and had some really great success. I won the largest children's film festival in the world. I worked at Disney Channel for a few years. But that was right after Katrina hit. And y'all know I'm from New
Mm,
Orleans. And so, I'm out in LA. It's 2006, 2007, 2008. And every time I have some time off from Disney, I'm flying home. And when
right.
I'm flying home, I am seeing that there's this person from Australia. Like, yeah, I came, I'm helping to rebuild the city. And I was like, oh, that's nice. This person from New York, this person from California. Like,
Sure.
all of these people are back in my city
Hmm.
that loved me and raised me. And I was like, what are you doing? Why are you in California right now when you see that your city needs you?
Mm,
And so I made a decision. I was like, you've been thinking about this for a long time, Kylie.
that's
You've
right.
been building toward this for a minute. And maybe it's time now. And so I put in my notice and told them, you know what, I'm about to go back and be a teacher. And so I moved back to New Orleans in 2009 and stepped in a classroom full of the most beautiful 30s bad second grade babies you ever want to see in your life. And I have not looked back since. But that
Oh,
it was
wow.
it was like a twist and turn there, but one that I am so happy to have done because I feel so fulfilled. I said, like I'm on I'm of course I'm like Instagram friends with my peeps who worked at Disney and stuff, and you see them at the Emmys and doing that
Hmm.
stuff. You're like, oh man, that looks fun. But
Yeah.
then I look at the notes that I have from my babies, and I'm thinking about all of those. I feel so fulfilled and so happy that I would make the decision over and over and over again to come back.
Yeah. And so you mentioned Disney Channel,
I did. Yep.
and I have my personal issues with the Disney Channel.
Yes.
Um,
Who don't?
just the way that they not only adultify the kids, there's some other things too, which is a whole nother episode. But I'm wondering, what shows did you write for the Disney Channel?
So that's a good question. I didn't actually write for the Disney Channel. The way it's an interesting system that I'm not sure people quite understand the way that it works, right? So
Right.
so in Hollywood, in TV, there is the like production side and there is the network side. So
Okay.
I'll explain it like this. Let's think about who's our girl, Shonda, right? Shonda Rhimes, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Who
Love
don't love
Shonda.
Shonda Rhimes? Who don't
Yeah.
love Shonda Rhimes, right? So Shonda Rhimes is this brilliant woman. She's a brilliant writer. She has all these fantastic ideas. She's like, I got these great ideas for a show. What Shonda don't have is the money and the network to make it happen, right? So she goes to a network. She goes to ABC and she says, I have this idea for a show. And ABC's like, cool. We're going to give you the money for you to
Mm,
do that. We're gonna put it on the show, but because we are giving you the money and putting it on our network, we also have to have a representative on your production team, right? So Shonda and her team are writing and putting that all in themselves, and then they had that nice little network executive that's sitting there.
wow.
And that's how it works.
All
So
right.
Shonda's the production side, and they have the network side. But when I was there on the network side, the shows that were I know, right? It's gross. You see why people you see she got made me see.
Mm-hmm.
So the shows that were happening when I was there on the network side was Hannah Montana, Sweet Life. I know.
Of Zach and Cody.
Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, then turned into Sweet Life on Deck, Wizards of Waverly Place. Now they had some good stuff. Okay.
There's some
Uh
good stuff. All right.
Phineas and Ferb, like
Phineas and
animation.
Ferb.
Animation was fantastic. Also, while I was there, they started Zeke and Luther, which was on Disney, which was a really, really sweet show. But
All right. All right.
I'm
Yeah,
over.
a lot of those shows I had an issue with. You mentioned, particularly the Zach and Cody shows. Um, how they got a brother as the butler and they just treating him like crap. But that's a whole nother story.
There's a
Okay.
lot of yes.
Yeah. But carrying on.
Carrying on. Living
um.
life. Now we over here
Yes.
helping young babies share their voices with the world.
There you go.
Yes,
So let's talk about what school was like for you, right? Because just like I went through K-12 school and you did the same,
I did.
all in New Orleans, I'm assuming, right?
All in New Orleans.
So I'm wondering during that time, during those 13 years
Yeah.
of schooling, were there any struggles that you had, either internally or externally, that made it difficult for you to show up as your authentic self?
So, Coleman, I'm not gonna like. I could try to sit here and make up some trials and tribulations about how tough it was, but honestly, my K-12 experience for me while I was moving through it was overwhelmingly positive. Like
Awesome.
overwhelmingly positive. It
This
was.
is probably a first.
I'm sure it's a first, but let me, but now that I have the gift of reflection and knowledge and stuff, I am understanding why my K-12 experience was overwhelmingly positive. So I'm a little black girl from the lower nine of New
Hmm.
Orleans, right? And I've only ever this other surprising part, I've only ever gone to PWIs. Only ever
Oh,
gone to PWIs. And I went to public schools. They were magnet schools, but I went to public schools. But I understand that I had the qualities and the support that a poor little black girl from the lower nine needed to be able to navigate. And not only navigate, I thrived in those schools to thrive in schools like that. So for one, I was very sweet disposition. I told you my mom said I'd never been a day of trouble my whole except for writing on the wall. Other than that, I was sweet and obedient. So if you told me to sit down and do my work, I was sitting down and doing my work.
wow.
So that is something like, oh, all right. She sits down and listens. I was not as spirited or lively or boisterous as some of my classmates, and we know that the black babies don't have the same grace to be spirited
That's
and
right.
lively and
Talk about it.
boisterous, right? They don't have that same grace. And so when you have a spirited, boisterous, lively black child, they got to be managed.
Mm,
I didn't have to be managed, and they shouldn't have been managed, but I understand that um, I was no trouble, right, in that way. So that was all. That was one thing. Also, I had tremendous support. All right, don't don't get it twisted about Leslie Robinson. She did not play behind her children. I went to kindergarten a reader. I was a reader when I went to kindergarten. Um, and my mom, so the school I went to a Montessori school, child centered,
Child
public school.
molester.
Yep,
Yeah.
Montessori. It was a public school. It was one of the top schools in the city. And the ticket to get in was so hot that people slept on the sidewalk to
Wow.
be first. And my mom and my aunt, because I had a cousin who's the same age as me, they were the first in line camping out to get us registered to be kindergartners at the
Wow.
school, right? And so my mom was like, I am serious. She understood that, you know, in order for this little girl from the lower nine to have opportunities, I'm probably going to have to make sure she's in spaces that are well resourced and will have that happen. And so thank you, Leslie Robinson, for sending me to Audubon Montessori as a reader. So I am quiet, I'm obedient, I'm sweet, and I can read, right? Going into kindergarten. And so my teachers, I'll say that um, an identity as like a smart child, right? As an able child, that was very affirmed
Mm.
at Audubon Montessori. Very affirmed there. As a black child, no.
Right.
But definitely my teachers were like, she's sweet, she's obedient, she could read. Let's work with her. And so I think that I got, and also Montessori schools are naturally set up to be child centered,
Yes.
right? They are naturally set up to be that way. Also, a tenet of and a practice of Montessori schools is mixed age grouping. And
Yes.
so
Right.
I'm in a class, I'm in a kindergarten first grade class. And so I'm a kindergartner, but I'm on a first grade level. And the teachers already know how to work with kids who are, like they're prepared, they're professional. They're like, oh, I know how to work with this child who's high and this child who's not so high. And so I'm in kindergarten, but I'm doing first grade work. And then when I moved to second and third grade, in the second, third grade class, I'm a second grader doing third grade work,
Mm.
right? And then when I get to fourth grade, I really did have a experience that was not the norm because in fourth grade, I had a white teacher
Hmm.
who told my parents, I think Kylie's gifted. And normally, for black children to be identified as gifted, it's because they have a black teacher. But I had a white teacher who was like, "Oh, I think Kylie's gifted," and then I was tested for gifted, and then wasn't gifted from fifth grade on up. But when I'm
Wow.
telling you, I had a really positive experience in K-12. That's why. Of course, there were some lemons here and there,
Of course.
but
Yeah.
for the most part, I was happy. I learned. I had friends. It was. It's why I love school to this day. I love school. Now, crazy enough, in my master's and in my PhD program, I'm side eyeing people because I'm like, wait a minute. But of course, I have more knowledge and experience um, to be like, I think that some of this stuff y'all doing is messed up. But K
Hmm.
12, it was fabulous.
All right. All right. And we'll touch on your PhD journey in a second.
Yeah.
But I do want to give you a chance before we run out of time to talk to us about We Scribbin. So this is your business. This is your other baby, right?
My other baby.
There you go. So let's talk about that. What's the mission of it? What kind of services are you providing through We Scribbin? Let the people know.
So, We Scribbin LLC is a pre K 12 literacy education consulting practice. Um, I call my practice We Scribbin for two reasons. One, yes, I'm less than a year away from being a doctor, but as I've said a million, like how many times she gonna tell us she's from the Lower Ninth Ward of New Orleans? Well, I'm from the Lower Ninth Ward of New Orleans, y'all, and it is very important to me. And so when I am my most me, and when I am with the people who love me best and who I love best, we scribbling is how we speak to each other, and it is very important to me that that language that has loved me and affirmed me and the language that in which I express the most joy is honored in the spaces that I occupied. And I need people to know from jump what you getting when you are going to contract Kyley Pulphus. Okay, you getting me scribbling. And so that's the first reason. The second reason why I call my business We Scribbling is because writing can be a very scary thing for young people to do, and it is a very scary thing for teachers to teach. They're like, I actually don't know how to do this, but I'm like, hey y'all, it's actually not that big a deal. We just scribbling, right? And so
Hmm.
my hope is that I am helping teachers create environments in which writing is accessible, it is affirming, it is joyful, it is engaging, and that we are taking the pressure off of young people and teachers to do it just right, to do it perfectly, right? Like I'm like, we're not worried about doing it perfectly. We got time to get it perfect. I just want you to start getting writing, to
Mm.
get started writing. And so I provide professional learning sessions for educators. I do curriculum development for organizations. I do coaching for teachers and organizations who are looking to be um, stronger instructors of writing. And it's been so beautiful. Like, I really have worked on some tremendous things and have loved it. It's been fabulous.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you did mention your doctoral journey,
Yes.
the world of academia, huh?
Oh my gosh.
So you're almost done.
I'm almost done.
The
I am
lights at the
almost
end
done.
of the tunnel, right?
That's right. I am what they
So
call ABD, all but dissertation. I am ABD.
there you go. So tell us about the focus of your dissertation. What's the main topic of what you're researching, and how has the journey itself been for you?
Well, I'm going to start with the journey.
Okay.
Um, Again, overwhelmingly positive. It's been, look,
You just
for
the
me,
most positive guest I've
it's
had on this
crazy.
show. I
It's
tell
crazy.
you, it just
Kwame,
brings me so
it's
much
because
joy.
it's because school for me, I have cracked the school code. For me, I'm a fish in water at
All
school.
right.
I really do. I love it. I love learning. I think it's so fun. I very much enjoy it. I feel good at it. And like y'all, I mean, I don't want to brag, but I have a 4.2. Like I really am in there doing my
Ow.
thing, right? Like I really, it's like, oh, she really likes school. What's your grades like? Grades are stupid, but I still get good ones, right? Because to me, learning is so much fun. So it's been overwhelmingly positive. Of course, there's things here and there that make it not so great, but for the most part, I very much enjoyed it. Now, my dissertation, y'all gonna be shocked to know, is about writing. Can you?
I would have
Who would
never
have
thought
thought?
it.
Who would have thought? But the title of my dissertation is "The Writer is the Sun," and it is a case study of a culturally responsive and anti-racist elementary writing workshop.
Mm,
And I was inspired to, really focus on this because I really enjoy writing workshop as, the primary way to teach for to practice writing instruction. I think it's really important. And my hunch has always been if you are doing writing workshop the way it's intended, right? The way
hmm.
it's intended,
Okay.
then you are inherently, you can't help but be culturally responsive and anti racist because you are centering the writer. And so, if you
True.
are really centering the writer, then that means that you are making all of your instructional decisions based upon that baby in front of you. The identities that they are bringing to the classroom, their lived experiences, the languages, their strengths, the things that they like, you are centering them, then you are going to naturally have to be those things. And
Interesting.
so you can't help it, right?
Because the way I understand it, and people will refer to was it Fontes and Pinnell
Right?
and these and all the other gurus.
Right?
When I think about writing workshop, there's always this set of rules that you have to follow, right? In terms of the writing, the drafting, the editing, publishing process. I've never heard it explained in a way such that, oh, you have to censor the writer. It seems like common sense, but you never hear it that way, right?
Yeah. I mean, like what it's like, hey baby, what do you want to write about? You tell me what you like. You really are like, what is
Mm,
it you want to write about? And then I'm supposed to build the curriculum around you. That's what we're
that's
supposed to
right.
be doing. And so what I did was For my literature review, because you know you got to do your literature review,
Of course.
I went through and I read up on writing workshop,
Mm-hmm.
student-centered learning, culturally responsive teaching, and anti-racist pedagogy, and
Sure.
then said what were the recommended practices across, like from each of them, and then saw where they were connected. And what
Mm.
I saw was that across all of them, the themes of identity, positive relationships, choice, guidance, and artifacts, right? Like we're gonna have something at the end of this. Like
That's
those
right.
were the things that were important. And so understanding that those were the five things that I needed to have in this experience, the teacher and I are planning a culturally responsive and anti-racist writing workshop for second grade babies. And I've already started data collection. I was there 2 hours ago. That's why I'm all tired. Not a break because they're in second
Mm.
grade, and but they're so sweet. So the baby, we negotiate curriculum with them. On Monday, y'all, they are going to select the topic of the book. They are picking it. They're gonna say what this book is gonna be about. And then once we know what the book they want to make is, we are going to find all the materials to make sure that we have created a workshop that supports them. They're gonna write. I'm going to take all their writings, design it, put it into a real book, get it printed by a printing company, and then we are going to have a celebration for them, a book release party that their families and friends are invited to. They are
Nice.
going to read, they're going to do book signings, and they're going to be real authors. And I am going to ask them. That is my whole dissertation. I'm going to ask them about it. What did you like about this? What did you not like about this?
All right.
And my hope is that from them, from my participants, I am able to create a list of practices that says this is what you need to do if you want to have an anti-racist and culturally responsive writing workshop, and it's been informed by the babies who went through it and the teacher too.
There you go.
So it's so sweet. I love it. I love it.
Wow. And I can't wait for this to be done
Me too.
so that I'm sure you're like, listen, let's just get this thing over with. I'm tired of editing. That's how I feel too. But listen, Kylie, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has just been a beautiful conversation, and I wish we
Yeah.
had more time, but I'm sure we'll find time in the
Again,
future.
we
I know,
will.
because there's so much more that we didn't cover, but I'm happy with where this conversation is gone.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up everything because we are running low on time. And I want to ask these two questions.
Okay.
Quick hitters, right?
Yeah.
First question is, how do you, Kyley Pulphus, stay true to the teacher in you?
I am I have a lot of confidence in myself, y'all. Right? What's that saying? They say don't let people treat you like a yellow starburst. You are a pink starburst. I'm a pink starburst. Right? And I expect pink starburst treatment in every environment and situation that I'm in. So when I
Okay.
enter a space, I'm saying, hey, understand that I'm bringing some really beautiful things, impactful things into this space, and I expect you to respect it. I really do. And so if I'm in a space and I'm making decisions that I feel are best for children, I expect that my higher ups, everybody else is really going to be like, because I know you're a pink starburst, we're going to let you roll with it.
There you go.
And if at any time people are giving me yellow starburst treatment, I let them know right away. I'm not yellow, I'm pink. So that's the
Mm.
I I'm pink. Let people know I'm pink, and don't be afraid to let people know that you are pink because you have the track record to back it up. It's cool. So that's what I do. I remind myself that I'm a pink starburst.
All right, there it is, y'all. And then my final question to you is a simple one. Let viewers know how they can connect with you on social media and how they can access your services at We Scribbin.
So you can find me at www.wescribbling.org, and my Instagram handle is at We Scribbin. Y'all, sometime I probably post 3 times a week. I'm not so good. I'm a millennial, but an elder millennial. So I'm not so great with social media. I try, but you can
Yeah, it's not.
definitely find me on there.
It's a lot though. It's a lot to manage. Even for me, it's a lot to
It's
manage.
a lot.
Ah, but you gotta hire somebody to do that for you. You really
You do.
do.
One
But
day.
who has? Yeah, one day, right?
One day.
I keep saying that to myself. But Kylie, thank you so much,
Thank
and
you.
we're gonna do this again. This was
Yeah.
easily one of my favorite episodes. Just the
Yay!
flow of it.
Mine
I
too.
I really enjoyed myself talking with you. I really did.
Thank you, Kwame, for having me. I'm like fangirling over here.
There you go.
Yes.
But thank you. All right, so we'll do it again, hopefully in the future, and I wish you a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right. All right, y'all. So it is a wrap. Another episode of Identity Talk Educators Live in the books. And as always, I wish you all good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. And we are going to do this again another time. Peace out, people.